She was 18 years old the morning her stepmother handed her a cardboard box and a one-way bus ticket. Inside that box was everything the woman had decided her dead father was worth. A worn flannel shirt, a jackknife with a bone handle, a silver pocket watch, and a deed to a place she called worthless. An old ice house, rotting on the shore of a frozen lake in northern Minnesota. For miles from the nearest paved road, taxes past due. Roof caving in. "Happy birthday," the woman said, and smiled. What that stepmother didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that a quiet carpenter had spent the last months of his life planning for this exact morning. Every board he replaced, every beam he reinforced, every letter he sealed inside a green metal box and hid behind a loose plank in a wall. He knew she would try to break his daughter, and he had left her something no cardboard box could ever hold. The truth. If you have ever been handed the broken pieces of a life and been told to be grateful. If you have ever been called a burden by someone who was supposed to love you, then stay with me, because what that 18-year-old girl found inside, that abandoned ice house, did not just change her future. It gave her one. The house was too quiet. That was the first thing Elowen Thorne noticed on the morning of her 18th birthday. Not the cold, not the pale gray light bleeding through the linen curtains, just the silence, the kind that lives inside houses where nobody laughs anymore. She sat on the edge of her bed, feet flat on the beige carpet, hands folded in her lap like a girl waiting for a bus that might never come. Teen. She turned the word over in her mind. It was supposed to mean something. A cake with candles, a mother's arms, someone, anyone, reaching across a table to squeeze her hand. Except there was no cake, no mother, no father, no one, just Corinne downstairs, making her third cup of coffee, polishing the granite countertop with a microfiber cloth. Because that was what Corinne did when she was about to ruin somebody's life. She cleaned. Elowen stood up. She caught her reflection in the mirror above the dresser. A tall girl, too thin, hair the color of wet oak. Eyes her father used to call storm water gray. She wore his old flannel shirt over her pajamas, the one that still smelled, faintly, of cedar shavings and coffee. 2 years she had slept in that shirt. 2 years since the phone call. 2 years since the funeral. She walked down the wide oak staircase, slow, careful, because Corinne hated the sound of feet on the stairs. The kitchen smelled like lemon polish and cold espresso. "Happy birthday, Elowen." "Thank you." "There's a muffin on the counter." Elowen looked. A single blueberry muffin. From the grocery store, a birthday candle stuck crookedly in the top. Unlit. Corinne turned then, and smiled. That smile meant, "I have already won, and you don't know it yet." She slid a cardboard box across the granite island. Then a manila envelope. Heavy, sealed with brown tape. "You're 18 today, which means the arrangement your father made for your care is legally concluded. As of 8 o'clock this morning." Arrangement. Yes, like a rental agreement. The smile didn't change. Something like that. The box had her father's handwriting on the lid. For Elowen. Blocky, careful, the way he wrote everything. Because Ellis Thorne had been a careful man. Measure twice, cut once, little owl. It's the only rule that matters. Little owl. Nobody had called her little owl in 2 years. "What's in the envelope?" "Your inheritance." The word landed like a slap. "You told me for 2 years there was no inheritance. You told me he died in debt." "That's mostly true. There were debts. I handled them. But your father did leave one thing. Just for you. Property. Up in northern Minnesota. A place called Silver Pine Lake." "I never heard of it." "No. You wouldn't have. Some old ice house. The kind they used before refrigerators. To store blocks of ice cut from the lake." Corinne said it slowly, like Elowen needed the definition of a word she already understood. "The taxes are past due. The roof is caving in. It is, in every practical sense, worthless." She paused. But your father was very specific in his will. He wanted you to have it. She smiled again. Happy birthday. Elowen felt something hot rise up in her chest. Not tears. Not yet. Something harder. When do I leave? There's a bus at 5:15. A taxi will pick you up at 4:30. To where? A town called Ridgemont. From there you'll need to walk. I don't know anyone in Minnesota. No, you don't. She turned back to her cleaning, as if the conversation were already over, as if Elowen were already gone. Elowen turned toward the stairs, then stopped. Corinne. Yes, dear? Did you love him? At all? For even a minute? The silence that followed was so complete Elowen could hear the humidifier ticking in the corner. Corinne didn't turn around. Your father was a very useful man. For a while. Elowen carried the box upstairs. She did not cry. She sat beside the box for a long time, looking at her father's handwriting. For Elowen, 2 words, written by a hand that was now dust in a cemetery outside Boston. She lifted the lid. Inside were the small mercies Corinne had allowed her to keep. 3 paperback novels, a jackknife with a bone handle, a leatherwork belt, cracked and soft, a silver pocket watch, 2 photographs, one of her father at maybe 25, laughing at something outside the frame. One of Elowen at 8 years old, sitting on his shoulders, both of them squinting into the sun. She pressed the flannel shirt to her face, breathed in, cedar, coffee, sawdust, him. Then she opened the manila envelope. The deed. Official seals. A bus ticket. A single key. Old. Iron. Heavy. And a folded piece of paper. She almost missed it. Cream-colored. Different from everything else. Miss Elowen Thorne. Per your father's explicit instructions, I have held this letter in trust until your 18th birthday. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Do not sign any documents. Do not make any decisions regarding the Silver Pine property until we have spoken. Your father, above all things, wanted you to be safe. Yours in service, Edmund Prescott, attorney at law. Elowen read the letter twice, then a third time. Do not sign anything. Above all things, wanted you to be safe. Something inside her chest moved. Something that had been sleeping for 2 years opened one eye. Because her father had planned this. Her father had reached across 2 years of silence and left her a message. Little owl. Wait. She folded the letter, slipped it into her jeans pocket. Then she packed a duffel bag, the flannel shirt, 3 pairs of jeans, 2 sweaters, a coat she had bought secondhand last winter, her mother's small silver cross on a chain, which she hadn't worn since the funeral, the photographs, the pocket watch, the jackknife. That was all she took, because there was nothing else in that beige carpeted bedroom that had ever really belonged to her. The taxi came at 4:30. Corinne was in the front hall, waiting, as if to make sure her prisoner left the premises on schedule. Well, Corinne said. Goodbye, Elowen. Elowen looked at her. Really looked. Goodbye, Corinne. She walked out the door. Down the front walk. Got into the taxi. Did not look back. She would not look back. Not ever again. The taxi driver was an older man with a gray mustache. He put her bag in the trunk. Held the door for her. At South Station he refused her tip. You keep it, miss. Looks like you might need it more than me. She almost cried then, at the kindness of a stranger, but she held it in, because she had learned to hold it in. Thank you, she whispered. The bus was old. The seats smelled like diesel and stale coffee. Elowen took a window seat near the back, rested her forehead against the cold glass. The bus rumbled to life. She was leaving Boston. For the first time in her life. Alone. Northern Minnesota was 1,400 miles away. She had $180 in her wallet, a duffel bag, a cardboard box, a deed to a ruin, and a letter from a lawyer she had never met. Little owl. Wait. The bus rolled north through the dark. She slept in fits, woke every time the bus pulled, into another small station. Milwaukee at dawn. A Greyhound terminal that smelled like Lysol and cinnamon rolls. She bought a coffee. A banana. Ate them standing up. Then west into Wisconsin. Farmland. Silos. Rolling hills that turned to forest. Then north again. Into Minnesota. Into a country she had only ever seen in photographs. By the time the bus rolled into Ridgemont, it was well past sunset. She had been traveling for nearly 36 hours. She stepped off the bus into a cold that stole her breath. October in northern Minnesota. Colder than any Boston winter she remembered. The air smelled of pine sap and something metallic. Snow, she realized. There was snow coming. Ridgemont was barely a town. A single main street. Half a dozen buildings. A gas station with a flickering neon sign. A diner. A hardware store. A church with a white steeple. A general store. And beyond it, in every direction, the dark, endless wall of the pines. You want me to wait, miss? Anyone picking you up? She shook her head.
No.
Thank you. He looked at her a moment.
Duffel bag.
Cardboard box. Thin coat. You sure? Yes, I'm sure. He nodded slowly, closed the door. The bus pulled away. Red tail lights disappearing around the bend. And then she was alone. The silence was enormous. She looked at the map on her phone. The Silver Pine Ice House was 4.5 miles down a side road. She had a phone with 14% battery, a duffel bag, a cardboard box, and a key. She started walking. The gravel road left the town within 100 yards. The pines closed over her head. The moon was up, almost full, painted the road silver white. After the first mile, her arms ached. After the second mile, she stopped, set the box down, sat on top of it, breathed. Her breath made clouds in front of her face. She thought, I could just sit here. I could just sit here until morning. She thought this is what she wanted. To break me on a road no one will find me on. She thought, little owl, get up. She got up. She walked another mile, then another. Her fingers were numb inside her gloves. Her nose was running. Her cheeks burned. And then, through the trees on her left, a mailbox, rusted. Leaning. The numbers faded but still readable. The driveway wasn't really a driveway. It was a track, choked with weeds and fallen branches. She pushed through them. And then the trees opened, and she saw it. The ice house stood at the edge of a clearing that sloped down to the lake. In the moonlight, the building was massive. A great gray cube of weathered timber, 2 stories tall. The roof sagged in the middle like the back of an old workhorse. No windows in the walls, just one heavy iron-banded door. A rusted padlock the size of her fist. Behind the ice house, the lake stretched away.
First.
Black, perfectly still. The moon laid a silver road across it. She stood for a long moment, just looking, because it was terrifying. And because it was beautiful. And because for a strange, sudden second, she felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. She felt like she had come home, which was ridiculous. She had never seen this place. She had never even known it existed. But something in her blood remembered. She walked to the door. The iron key was heavy in her hand. She fitted it to the padlock. Turned. It resisted. She put her shoulder into it. With a deep grinding groan, the lock gave. The door opened on hinges that shrieked. The air that came out was ancient. Not stale. Not dead. Something older than that. A cold that had been trapped inside those walls for half a century. A cold that smelled of dry pine and cedar shavings. She turned on her phone flashlight. The beam cut into the darkness, and she gasped, because the ceiling was 3 stories high, crisscrossed with massive beams, as thick as her body, because the floor was covered in a soft blanket of sawdust 6 inches deep, because in the middle of the vast space stood the ghostly shapes of old machinery, conveyor belts, pulleys, iron ice tongs the size of a man, because this place, this ruin, this so-called worthless building, was extraordinary. She stepped inside. Her boots made no sound on the sawdust floor. It was like walking into a cathedral, or a tomb, or a time capsule. In the far corner, she found a small partitioned room. An office, a single grimy window looking out toward the lake. A wooden desk, a chair, everything coated in fine dust. She set down the cardboard box, sat in the chair. The wood groaned under her. She was exhausted, cold to the bone, hungry. She put her head in her hands. And for the first time in 18 months, she let herself cry. Real tears, loud tears, tears that shook her shoulders. She cried for her father, for his hands smelling of cedar, for the man who had died 2 years ago and left her alone in a house that had never wanted her. She cried for the 18-year-old girl sitting in the dark of an abandoned ice house, for miles from nowhere. She cried until she was empty. Then, slowly, she wiped her face on the sleeve of her father's flannel shirt. Her flashlight had rolled across the desk. Its beam had come to rest on the wall behind her. She frowned, because one of the wooden planks in the wall looked different, slightly lighter than the others. The nail heads not as rusted. It was subtle. She would have missed it entirely if her flashlight hadn't landed on it just so. She stood up, walked over, ran her fingers along the plank, pushed it. Nothing. But she remembered. Suddenly and completely. She remembered her father, 12 years ago, building a secret compartment in the back of her closet in the old house. For your treasures, little owl. A good hiding place has to be invisible. Her heart began to beat faster. She looked around the office. There, in the corner, a rusted iron pry bar. She picked it up, wedged the tip into the seam. Pried gently. The wood creaked. She pried harder. The plank popped loose. Behind it was a hollow space, and inside that hollow space was a box. She lifted it out. A dark green metal box. Military. Heavy. Cold as ice. She set it on the desk with trembling hands. On the top, painted in careful white letters, was a single word. Elowen. Her name, in her father's handwriting. She sat down. She could not stand. Her knees would not hold her. For a long time she just looked at it, because 2 years ago her father had sat in this cold room, painted her name on this box, hidden it behind a loose plank, knowing he would never come back, knowing she would. She reached out. Her fingers found the latch. It was not locked. He had left it unlocked. For her, she lifted the lid. Money. Neat bundles of $100 bills. Maybe 15,000. Maybe 20. Beneath the money, a thick stack of envelopes, tied with twine, each envelope numbered. Beneath the envelopes, a leather-bound journal. Beneath the journal, a folder of documents, blueprints, geological surveys. She lifted out the envelopes, untied the twine. The top envelope was numbered 1. Her hands shook, so badly she could barely open it. My dearest little owl. She stopped, pressed the paper to her chest, squeezed her eyes shut. Little owl, little owl, little owl. She opened her eyes, started again. My dearest little owl. If you are reading this, it means several things. It means I am gone. It means you have turned 18. It means Corinne has done exactly what I predicted, and sent you here believing this place is worthless. And it means my plan, at least the first part of it, has worked. I am so sorry. For the secrets. For the silence. For the 2 years you must have suffered. I want you to know that every choice I made was made to keep you safe. Before you decide anything, before you sign anything, before you speak to anyone, I need you to read these letters. In order, there are 23. I wrote them over the last year of my life. Most of them at the workshop. The final 3 from a hospital bed. Each one tells you a piece of the truth. This place is not a ruin, little owl. It is a fortress. I reinforced it myself. The walls are strong. The foundation is solid. Nothing here is what it appears to be. Neither is Corinne. Neither was your father. And neither, my dearest girl, are you. Tomorrow, when the sun is up, go into town. Find the diner on Main Street. It's called Marigold's. Sit at the counter. The woman who owns it is named Marigold Fenwick. She was your grandmother's best friend for 60 years. She has been waiting for you almost as long as I have. Tell her who you are. Then call the lawyer, Edmund Prescott. His number is in your envelope. Do exactly what he tells you. They will come for you, little owl. Sooner than you think. Do not sign anything. Do not sell anything. Do not trust anyone I have not named in these letters. I love you. I have loved you every single day of your life. Read the next letter tomorrow. Sleep first. You will need your strength. Your father always, Ellis. Elowen sat in the cold office. She read it again, and a third time, because her father had known. Because her father had left her not a ruin, but a map. She wrapped herself in her father's flannel shirt, pulled her coat tight around her shoulders, curled up in the desk chair, head resting on her arms on the desk, the green box beside her elbow, the letter still in her hand. She fell asleep like that. She did not dream. The sun woke her, pale October light through the grimy window. For a long moment she did not know where she was. Then she remembered. Marigold's Diner. Main Street. She has been waiting for you. She sat up. Every muscle protested. 6% battery. No service. 7:43 in the morning. She stood, went to the door of the office, and she gasped, because in the daylight, the ice house was more magnificent than she could have imagined. Sunlight fell through cracks in the roof in long dusty beams. The old machinery cast long shadows. The whole place glowed. She walked to the front door, pushed it open. The lake, Silver Pine Lake, stretched out before her like something from a fairy tale. A perfect round bowl of dark blue water, ringed with pines that blazed orange and gold. A thin white mist hovered above the surface. A loon called from somewhere far across the water. She stood in the doorway, breathing. She thought, this is mine. She thought, he gave me this. She thought, I will not let anyone take it. She slid the padlock back through the hasp, started the 4-mile walk back to town. Ridgemont was quiet in the morning. She walked down Main Street looking for the diner. There it was, between the general store and the church. Marigold's.
1962.
The windows were fogged with warmth. Yellow light glowed inside. She could hear the low murmur of voices. Her hand trembled on the door handle. She pushed it open. A bell jingled. The diner was small. A long counter with red vinyl stools. The smell of bacon and coffee and cinnamon. Half a dozen people looked up when she walked in, and went back to their food. Elowen crossed to the counter, sat on a stool. A woman came out from the kitchen. Early 70s. Small, round, silver hair pinned up in a soft knot. A white apron over a blue cotton dress. Eyes as blue as the October sky. She was carrying a coffee pot. She stopped in the middle of the floor. Coffee pot halfway to a customer's cup. She was looking at Elowen. The whole diner went quiet. The woman's free hand rose to her mouth. Oh, she whispered. Oh, dear Lord in heaven. She set the coffee pot down. Very carefully, she walked around the counter. Slowly. You have your grandmother's eyes. Her voice cracked on the word grandmother. I am so sorry, sweetheart. I need to look at you. I have waited so long. And then Marigold Fenwick, 72 years old, opened her arms. And Elowen Thorne, 18 years old, 1,000 miles from a home that had never been a home, stood up and walked into them. Marigold held her and rocked her and whispered, you are home now. Nobody is going to hurt you here. Not while there is breath in my body. Elowen could not speak. Marigold pulled back, held Elowen's face in both of her small warm hands. Ellis. Oh, Ellis. She's the picture of Ada. Ada. Elowen's grandmother, whose name she had heard maybe 3 times in her life. Because her father had almost never spoken of the past. Because Corinne had erased anything that predated her.
Come, sweetheart.
Si. When did you last eat? Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Si.
Marigold steered her to a booth by the window. Vanished. Came back with a plate. Scrambled eggs. Bacon. 2 thick slices of buttered toast. Orange juice. Coffee. Eat. Every bite. Do you have somewhere to stay? The ice house. On the lake. Marigold's face went still. You slept there. Last night. Alone. Yes. Marigold closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright and hard. That will not happen again. Not until we get you safe. You will stay in my spare room tonight. And every night after. I don't want to be a burden. Elowen Thorne. Something in the way she said the whole name, sharp, like her father had said it, made Elowen stop. You are not a burden. You are the answer to 12 years of prayer. Do you understand me? You are a thorn. Your people built this town. Your people are buried in the cemetery behind the church. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You just didn't know. Elowen could not speak. She only nodded. Marigold walked her across the street. To the small white church. Pastor Josiah Hartwell was standing in the doorway. Tall, thin, 60s, iron-gray beard, warm brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Miss Thorne, welcome. Your father told me you would come. He held out his hand. She took it. He led her inside, to a small locked cabinet, took out an envelope, sealed with wax, held it out. He gave me this 2 years ago. He said, when my daughter comes, give her this. Not a day before, not a day after. On the front, in her father's handwriting. For my daughter. Pastor Josiah sat beside her on the pew. I'll leave you to open it in your own time, but before you do, I want you to know one thing. She looked at him. Your father was one of the finest men I have ever known, and whatever comes next, you are not walking through it alone. She nodded. He stood, placed a hand briefly on her shoulder, and left her alone in the sunlight. She sat holding the envelope for a long time. Then she reached into her jeans pocket, took out Edmund Prescott's letter. She walked out of the church. Marigold was waiting for her on the front step of the diner. As if she had known, Elowen sat down beside her. May I use your phone? Mine is dead. Marigold handed her a small silver flip phone. Elowen dialed. Prescott Law Offices. My name is Elowen Thorne. I need to speak with Mr. Prescott. It's about my father, Ellis Thorne. A pause. A short, sharp intake of breath. Miss Thorne, please hold. He has been waiting for your call for 2 years. The line clicked, then a calm, dry voice, warm underneath. Miss Thorne, Elowen, it is good to hear your voice. Mr. Prescott, have you read the first letter? Yes. And you understand that they will come for you. She looked out at the road, at the pines, at the pale October sky. Yes, sir, I do. Edmund Prescott's voice was calm, which was strange, because Elowen's whole world was not calm. Miss Thorne, I want you to listen very carefully. Your father filed a second will with me, separate from the one your stepmother executed. She does not know it exists. Not yet. A second will. Yes, she took what he wanted her to take. The Boston house. The savings. He knew she would be watching those. He hid the ice house in plain sight, labeled it worthless in every document she was allowed to see. Elowen went still. Marigold's hand was warm on hers. A truck rumbled past on Main Street. A bird sang somewhere in the pines. And her father, her quiet, careful father, had beaten Corinne. From beyond the grave. Mr. Prescott, are you saying my father set her up? I am saying your father protected you, in the only way a dying man could. She closed her eyes. Are you at the ice house now?
No.
I'm at the diner. Marigold's. Yes. Is she with you? Yes. Good. Stay with her. Do not go back to the property alone. Not today. I am overnighting a package to Marigold. Inside is a prepaid cell phone, a solar charger, a cashier's check drawn on a trust your father established. Read every letter in that green box. In order. And do not, under any circumstances, speak to a man named Julian Ravensdale. Her stomach dropped. Who? He works for Ironhold Development Group. He is going to appear very soon. He will offer you what will sound like a great deal of money. Do not engage. Do not sign. Do not so much as accept a cup of coffee from him. Call me the moment he arrives. Mr. Prescott, what did they do to my father? Long silence. That, Miss Thorne, is a conversation we will have when I see you in person, when you have read everything in the box. Yes, sir. Elowen. Yes. You are not alone. Your father made sure of it. I have been waiting 2 years for this call. The line clicked. She sat on the diner step, October sun on her face, Marigold's small hand in hers. She did not move, because if she moved, she might break. He said, "Stay with me." Yes. Then you're staying with me. Marigold. Sweetheart. I don't want to impose. Elowen Thorne. Yes, ma'am. You are not imposing. You are coming home. Now finish your coffee. Then we are going up the street, to my brother's store. Because you are going to need boots, and a proper coat, and 100 other things that Boston child in that thin jacket has never dreamed of. Winter here is not a season. It's a war. Wendell Fenwick was 70 years old. He looked like he had been carved from the same pine that grew behind his store. Tall, lean, white beard, blue eyes like his sister's but harder. Kinda. Both. He was standing behind the counter of the general store when Marigold walked Elowen in. He looked up, set down the invoice he was reading. He came out without a word, stopped in front of her, studied her face. Ada Thorne's granddaughter. Yes, sir. Ellis Thorne's girl. Yes. He stuck out a hand the size of a shovel. Wendell Fenwick. She put her small cold hand in his enormous warm one. He held it for a beat, then let go. You come to stay? Yes, sir. Ice house. Yes. He nodded once, slow, like a man confirming something he had already known. Then you need everything. I don't have much money. Girl. Your daddy's credit is still good in this store, and it will be good in this store until the day I die. Now come on. They spent an hour. Wendell moved through the store like a general in a supply depot. Boots, wool socks, long underwear, proper insulated coat, dark green. Onithot. Mittens with leather palms. A flannel shirt in her size. A red plaid one, because every Thorne woman I ever knew had a red plaid shirt. 2 pairs of heavy wool pants. A headlamp. A folding knife. A hatchet. You know how to use a hatchet? No, sir. Delphine will show you. Who? My granddaughter. She's up here from the university, taking her fall semester remote. On account of her mother. She's over at the house. You'll meet her tonight. He charged everything to Thorne, Ellis. Estate of. Refused when Elowen tried to hand him cash. Girl. Yes, sir. You keep that money. You're going to need it. He walked around the counter, put his hand briefly on top of her head, the way a grandfather does. She sat on the wooden bench by the door, unlaced her city sneakers, pulled on the wool socks, laced up the leather boots. They fit her like they had been waiting for her feet. The Fenwick house was 3 blocks from the diner, a small yellow clapboard place with a wide front porch. 2 rocking chairs, wood smoke coming from the chimney. Marigold opened the door. Delphine, sweetheart, we have company. A voice called from the kitchen. Coming. A girl came around the corner. Elowen's age, maybe 2 years older, 20, tall. Dark curly hair pulled back in a bandana. Freckles, green eyes, paint on her hands. A gray sweatshirt with a college logo faded almost off the front. Delphine Fenwick. She stopped when she saw Elowen, wiped her hands on her jeans. You're her. Yes. Grandma has been talking about you my whole life. Oh, not in a weird way. Mostly. Elowen laughed. She actually laughed. A small surprised sound. Delphine grinned. She stuck out her paint-streaked hand. Delphine, I'm sorry about my hand. I was doing a canvas. Elowen. I know. They shook. And something in Elowen. Something that had been clenched tight as a fist for 2 years. Unclenched. Just a little. She read the letters in Marigold's spare room. The bed was made up, with a quilt Marigold had sewn 40 years ago. Sunflowers on white. The window looked out on a small backyard, with a single apple tree. She sat cross-legged on the quilt, the green metal box beside her. She opened envelope number 2. Little owl. Now that you have found Marigold, you have found your foothold. Let her feed you. Let her hold you. You will need those things in the days ahead. Now, to business. Do you remember when you were small, I used to take you out into the yard at night? And I would point up, and I would tell you, little owl, everything you see in the sky is older than us. When you look up, you are looking at the past. The same is true of the ground beneath our feet. Under Silver Pine Lake, there is a rock formation that geologists call the Duluth Complex. It runs for about 200 miles across northern Minnesota. It contains one of the largest untapped deposits of nickel and copper in North America. And in recent years, certain veins have been found to carry commercial concentrations of lithium as well. The land the ice house sits on is directly over one of the richest of those veins. Your great-grandfather bought this parcel in 1907. He was a smart man. He bought the surface rights and the mineral rights together. He wrote it into the deed in language that has held up for over 100 years. Which means when Ironhold Development Group came to me 3 years ago, with a smiling face and an offer for the lakefront property, they were not offering to buy a view. They were offering to buy the ground. I said no. They offered more. I said no. They offered a great deal more. I said no. And that, little owl, is when the accidents began. She read for 2 hours. Envelope by envelope. Letter 3. The zoning dispute, filed by an anonymous concerned neighbor, which cost her father $11,000 in legal fees to defeat. Letter 4. The tax audit. Random, they said. 6 months of paperwork. Nothing found. Letter 5. The workshop fire. 3 in the morning. Insurance investigator ruled it faulty wiring, which was strange, because Ellis Thorne had rewired that workshop himself the year before. Letter 6. And then Little Owl.
Je met Corinne Ashford-Vale.
Elowen stopped reading. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the apple tree. Her heart was beating too fast. She had known. Of course she had known. From the first letter. But knowing was one thing. Reading it, in her father's handwriting, was something else. She came into my life at a fundraiser for the Boston Historical Society. She said she had lost her own father young. She said she understood loneliness. I fell in love with her, Little Owl. Slowly, the way a careful man falls in love. Within a year we were married. I want you to know that I loved her, truly, for a while. I want you to know that I am ashamed of that, because within 6 months of our wedding, small things began to happen. Documents I kept in my desk would move, and then, small pieces of information I had told her in confidence would appear in the mouths of Ironhold's lawyers. A week later, 2 weeks, never enough to prove, but I am a careful man. So I set a trap. I told her over dinner that I had decided to sell the ice house, that I would meet with Ironhold the following Monday. It was a lie. The next morning at 10:47 a.m., Ironhold's lead attorney called my office to schedule Monday's meeting. I set 2 more traps. Both of them sprung. Then I sat her down at our kitchen table, and I asked her. She did not deny it. She looked me in the eye, and she said, "Ellis, it's just business. Don't be so provincial about it. Just business." I told her to leave. She smiled, and she said, "Ellis, darling, you do not understand what you have here. If you had, you would not have married a lonely widow you met at a fundraiser. I am not leaving, because you are going to have an accident, And that little girl of yours is going to need somebody to take care of her. And that somebody will be me. I did not throw her out, because I had gone straight to Edmund Prescott, and we began to build the fortress. Elowen let the letter drop into her lap. She stared at the apple tree. She did not cry, because there were no tears left in her for this. There was only a slow, cold, hard, steady thing building in her chest. Delphine knocked on the doorframe. Grandma made grilled cheese. I have been sent to fetch you. Elowen looked up. Delphine took one look at her face. Came in. Sat down on the edge of the bed. Did not ask. Did not push. Just sat there. For a long time. Then Elowen said, very small, she was a spy. My stepmother. She was a spy for the company that wanted the mineral rights. Delphine did not gasp. Just nodded. Slowly. Okay. And she, my father says, in this letter, she told him, he was going to have an accident. Okay. And a few weeks later, he did. Delphine reached over. Took Elowen's hand. Then we are going to get her, she said. Simply, like she was talking about the weather. Delphine, you don't even know me. You are Ada Thorne's granddaughter. My grandma's Ada. That means you are family. But, Elowen, come eat your grilled cheese. She ate her grilled cheese. That night she slept in the sunflower quilt bed. 11 hours. She woke once around 3 in the morning. Coming back down the hall, she saw a soft glow under Marigold's bedroom door. She stood in the hall for a moment. She heard, faintly, Marigold's voice, praying by name, for Elowen Thorne, and for Ellis Thorne, and for Ada Thorne, and for justice, and for mercy. Elowen stood in the dark hall, and listened, and felt something she had not felt since her mother died. She felt held. The package from Edmund Prescott arrived at 10 the next morning. The prepaid flip phone, the solar charger, a cashier's check for $12,000, and a note from the trust for supplies. Get a generator. Get a wood stove. Physical presence establishes residency. Do not let them use the abandonment clause. Edmund. They installed the wood stove together. Delphine, Elowen, Wendell, and a man named Cyrus who ran the propane depot and had roofed the ice house with Ellis in 1998 as a favor to Ada. Cyrus was 76. He had 4 teeth and a laugh like an engine that would not quite turn over. Your daddy did good work in here before he went. You knew he was working here, girl. Everybody in this town knew Ellis was working out here. At night, alone. We just didn't know why. Now we do. They ran the stovepipe through the sawdust wall. Cyrus knew how. Wendell held the pipe. Delphine handed tools. Elowen followed her father's schematic from the journal. Every measurement in his own hand. They lit the first fire at 4 in the afternoon. The stove caught. The first pale twist of smoke went up the pipe. The first warm push of heat rolled out. Elowen stood in front of the stove, held her hands out to the flame. Her father's flannel on her back. Her father's careful drawings in her pocket. Her father's fortress warming around her. She whispered, "Thank you." They came for her on a Thursday. She had been living between Marigold's spare room and the ice house for 8 days. Reading letters, studying the journal. Delphine had shown her how to run the generator, how to use the hatchet. She was at the ice house alone, sweeping sawdust from the office. The stove was going. She was wearing her father's flannel, her red plaid over it, her boots, her hair in a braid. She heard the car before she saw it. Not a truck. A car. Smooth engine. Expensive. She went to the front door, opened it. A black BMW. Newer model. Idling in the clearing. The driver's door opened. A man got out. Early 40s. Tall. Well-dressed. A charcoal wool overcoat that had never been within a mile of an actual winter. Leather gloves. A briefcase. A smile that showed all his teeth. "Miss Thorne, my name is Julian Ravensdale. I'm with Ironhold Development Group. I wonder if I could have just a moment of your time. Her hand tightened on the door frame. Do not engage.
No.
He blinked. Just once. His smile did not slip.
I'm sorry. No.
You cannot have a moment of my time. Miss Thorne, please leave. He set his briefcase down, slowly, as if he had not heard her. Miss Thorne, I understand this is difficult. Losing your father, being sent up here all alone, with this burden of a property. It is a great deal, for a young woman of your age, to bear. He took a small step forward. She did not move. We at Ironhold are prepared to take that burden off your hands, today, with a check, that you can walk into any bank in the United States and cash. Before the sun goes down. He unsnapped his briefcase, took out an envelope, held it out. $300,000, Miss Thorne. Cash. All expenses paid. All property taxes settled. You sign the deed over to us today. You walk away. You go back to Boston. You start a life. That is not this. She looked at the envelope. She did not take it. Get off my property. He lowered the envelope. For a moment his face changed. The smile did not move, but his eyes went flat. Miss Thorne, may I be candid?
No.
Your father was a very sentimental man. Stop. A sentimental.
Provincial. Man.
Who did not understand what he was sitting on. He clung to an idea of family. That is beautiful. In a museum. And ruinous. In real life, he died with debts. He left you nothing but debts. And a rotting building. That will kill you before Christmas. I said stop. Take the money, Miss Thorne.
No.
Take the money. Before the offer expires. Because it will expire. And the next offer will be lower. And the offer after that. Lower still. And the offer after that. Will not be an offer at all. Do you understand me? She stepped down. Out of the doorway. Onto the top step. She looked at him. 5'4", in her father's flannel, her red plaid, her big second-hand boots. She had never been so cold in her life. My father was not a sentimental man. My father was a careful man. And he knew you were coming. And he knew what you would say. And he told me in a letter exactly how you would speak to me. He wrote it down 2 years ago. Do you know what he wrote? Julian Ravensdale said nothing. He wrote, he will smile at you, little owl. And then he will tell you your father was a fool. And when you refuse, he will threaten you. And when you still refuse, he will leave. And then the real trouble will begin. She smiled. For the first time. So, Mr. Ravensdale, please, threaten me, so we can move on. To the real trouble. My father predicted. He stared at her. Something moved in his face. A small ugly thing. Then the smile came back. Wider. Miss Thorne, I sincerely hope, when you are freezing in that barn in February, and you call our office begging us to take this place off your hands, I sincerely hope. I am the one who takes your call. He picked up the briefcase, got into his BMW, backed down the overgrown drive. Very slowly, he drove away. Elowen stood on the top step, trembling. From behind the corner of the ice house, Delphine stepped out. Her phone in her hand. Screen still red dot recording. Got it. You. Were you. The whole time. Grandma made me follow you out here. She had a feeling. You. Delphine. Every word. Including the part where he threatened you. And the part where he said your father was a fool. All of it. On camera. Elowen sat down. On the top step, because her knees would not hold her. Delphine sat down beside her, put an arm around her shoulders. You did good. I was so scared. You did good. I said things I don't even know where they came from. You said your father's words. He wrote them for you, and you spoke them. They sat that way for a long time, on the top step of the ice house, watching the last of the sun leave the pines. 2 days later, they cut Wendell's truck tires. All 4. Clean slashes. Sidewalls. Professional. Marigold was in the diner when she heard. She set down the coffee pot. Very slowly, she turned to Elowen, sitting at the counter. It has begun. That night, Elowen dreamed of her father. She was 6. They were in his workshop. He was showing her how to plane a piece of cedar. His big hands over her small hands. Feel the grain, little owl. Feel where it wants to go. Never fight the grain. Read it. Then you decide. She woke up in the sunflower quilt bed. 3 in the morning. She went downstairs. Marigold was in the kitchen, making tea, as if she had known.
Sit, sweetheart.
Elowen sat. Marigold set a mug of chamomile in front of her, then sat across from her, reached across the table, placed something down between them. A Bible. Old, black leather, soft with use. The gold letters on the cover faded almost off. This was your grandmother's. Elowen looked at it. When Ada died, she left it to me, because I was the only person she knew who would read it every day. But she made me promise that if you ever came home, I would put it in your hands. Elowen touched the cover. She wrote in the margins. Her whole life. There are notes in there about your father when he was born. About the day the ice house was finished. About the day your mother married Ellis. About the day you were born. Ada wrote it all down. Elowen opened the Bible, flipped gently to a random page. In faded blue ink, in a woman's neat handwriting, in the margin beside Psalm 23, July 14, 2007. Elowen was born tonight. Ellis called from the hospital at 11:41 p.m. He was crying. I could hear her crying too in the background. 2 Thorne women crying. It was the sweetest sound I ever heard. Elowen pressed her hand flat over the page. Marigold reached across the table. You were loved, sweetheart. Before you were born. You were loved. Do not ever forget that. Elowen nodded. She could not stop nodding. Elowen read the 21st letter that morning. She had saved the last 3. Because the closer she got to the end, the more she was afraid. Little owl, you have 20 letters now. You know most of what I know. But there is one more thing that I have not been able to bring myself to write. Until now, until this letter, which I am writing from a hospital bed, 10 days after my fall from the scaffolding. Little owl, I want you to sit down. She was sitting. The scaffolding did not fail. I built that scaffolding 2 weeks before the fall, with brand new bolts, torqued to spec. I inspected them the morning of the accident. All 8. I always inspect them the morning of. It is a habit older than you are. They were tight when I climbed up. They were loose when I fell. The night before, Corinne told me she was going to spend the night at a friend's house in the city. She did not. I know this because Cyrus, who runs the propane depot at the highway exit, remembers her car. Remembers her buying coffee at 4 in the morning. Heading north, toward the ice house. I did not need to prove it in court. I only needed to know it, in my own heart, before I died. She loosened the bolts, little owl. My wife, your stepmother, in the dark, alone, in our ice house, and then she drove back to Boston, and she was in our bed, when I came downstairs at 6, to make her coffee. I never told her that I knew, because if I had told her, she would have finished the job, and I needed to live, long enough, to finish these letters, and to give Edmund one more thing, that I have not yet told you about. But that, little owl, is the 23rd letter, which you should read tomorrow, not tonight. I love you, your father, Ellis. Elowen closed the letter. She did not cry. She did not scream. She stood up, very calmly, from the kitchen chair. Walked down the hall, out the back door, into the cold October morning. She sat down on the porch step. She put her head down on her knees. At some point Marigold came out, sat down beside her, wrapped a wool blanket around her shoulders. Did not speak, just held. At some other point Delphine came out, sat down on Elowen's other side, rested her head against Elowen's shoulder. Nobody said a word. The 3 of them, on a small porch, in the northern light. That night Edmund Prescott called on the burner phone. His voice was tight. "Miss Thorne, I need to tell you something, before you see it in the news tomorrow morning." "What?" "Ironhold has filed a countersuit for fraud. They are claiming that you forged your father's second will, that the geological surveys were fabricated. And that is not the worst of it." "What is the worst of it?" "A regional newspaper, the Boston Ledger, is running a story tomorrow morning. Corinne went on record with them yesterday." Silence. "She has told them that you are an unstable young woman with a history of mental illness, that she took you in out of Christian charity, that you developed a paranoid obsession with the ice house, that you forged documents, and that you ran away from her home 2 weeks ago on your 18th birthday. And she has been, in her words, praying every day for your safe return." Elowen sank onto the edge of the sunflower quilt bed. The headline reads, "Teen heiress accused of forging late father's will. Grieving widow pleads for return." Silence on the line. "Elowen, are you there?" "Yes." "Do you understand what has happened?" "Yes." "They are trying to destroy you." "In the eyes of the public, before we can destroy them. In the eyes of the court." "Yes. But listen, your father prepared for this exact moment. This is why he wrote the 23rd letter." She looked across the room. At the green metal box, at the small wooden dresser, one envelope still sealed, still tied with twine. "Number 23. Read it tonight, and tomorrow morning, come to my office. I will send a car, and we are going to fight." She hung up. She walked across the small bedroom, sat on the floor beside the green metal box, took out the 23rd envelope. She held it, in both hands, against her chest. She whispered, "Okay, Daddy, tell me what to do." And she began to untie the twine. "Little owl, if you are reading this letter, then Corinne has taken the fight to the newspapers, which means Edmund and I predicted correctly, which means it is time. In the workshop behind the Boston house, there was an old wall clock, German. My grandfather brought it back from a job in 1958. It never kept perfect time. Corinne hated it. She wanted me to throw it away. I told her I loved it because it was Ada's father's. That was not entirely true. I loved it because I had hollowed out its case and installed a small digital recorder that was voice-activated, and that had been running every day for 18 months before I fell. Corinne never went into the workshop, little owl. She said the sawdust made her cough. She said it smelled like poverty. She spent exactly 0 minutes in that room in the entire time we were married, which meant that the workshop was the only place I could have private conversations, which meant it was also the only place she came to confront me when she thought no one was listening. The recorder captured everything, little owl, everything, including the night after I told her I knew about the mineral rights, including her exact words, when I said I would never sell, and she said what she said. Edmund has the recorder. He has had it for 2 years. Do not go to court without it, little owl. Do not accept any settlement. Do not compromise until Edmund plays that tape. I love you, your father, Ellis. Elowen sat on the floor of the sunflower quilt room, the letter in her lap. She read it 3 times. Then she picked up the burner phone. Dialed Edmund Prescott. He picked up on the first ring. "Miss Thorne, you have the recorder." "Yes." "You have had it for 2 years." "Yes." "Why didn't you play it?" "Because your father asked me not to. He said, wait until Elowen turns 18. Wait until she is the plaintiff. Wait until Corinne underestimates her. Then play it. In court, where she cannot run." Silence. "Mr. Prescott." "Yes. I am the plaintiff." "Yes, you are." "Play it." "Yes, Miss Thorne. I will." The car came for her at 7 the next morning. A black sedan. A driver in a dark suit. He held the door for her. Did not speak. Did not need to. Elowen wore Wendell's dark green coat, her father's flannel underneath, Ada's silver cross around her neck, her hair in a low braid. Marigold stood on the front step of the yellow house in the gray morning light. Delphine beside her. "You call us, the minute anything happens." "I will." Marigold reached up, cupped Elowen's face in both hands. "You are a Thorne, sweetheart. You come from a line of women who did not bend." "Yes, ma'am. Now go." Elowen got into the car. The drive to the city took 90 minutes. She watched the pines roll past. The gray sky, the last of the October leaves. She was not afraid, which surprised her, because a week ago she would have been terrified. But something had shifted. Something in her had gone quiet, and still, and hard as the ice on the lake. She was her father's daughter. She was Ada Thorne's granddaughter. She was going to war. Edmund Prescott was 74 years old. He met her at the door of his office, a small dignified building on a quiet street. Not the glass and steel of the corporate law towers. A brownstone, ivy on the walls, green shutters. He was tall, silver-haired, a three-piece suit that was 30 years old and immaculate. Warm brown eyes behind rimless glasses. He held out both hands to her. She put both of hers into his. "Miss Thorne, I have been waiting." "So have I, sir." "Come in, child. There is a great deal to do." They worked for 6 hours. He walked her through everything. The second will, the geological surveys, the chain of evidence, the witnesses he had already lined up. Cyrus at the propane depot. A woman named Iris, who had been Corinne's housekeeper, and had noticed things she should not have noticed. A carpenter named Beau Whitlock, who had helped Ellis reinforce the ice house, and had signed a sworn statement 2 years ago that Ellis had believed he was being followed. And the recorder, small, black, about the size of a pack of cards. Edmund set it on his desk between them. He pressed the button. Ellis Thorne's voice filled the room. "I know what you did, Corinne. I know why you married me. I know who paid you. Get out of my house." "Ellis, darling, do not be so provincial. Get out." "I am not going anywhere, and neither are you, because you are going to have an accident. And that little girl of yours is going to need somebody to take care of her. And that somebody will be me. Do you understand what I am telling you?" "I understand." "Good. Now go to bed." "Ellis, you have work in the morning." Edmund pressed stop. Elowen sat very still. She had never heard her father's voice again. Since the funeral, she had thought she had forgotten what it sounded like. She had not forgotten. She closed her eyes. Edmund waited. After a long time she opened them. "When do we play this?" "In court. Tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. Superior Court. Judge Marion Alcott. She is a fair judge, and she does not tolerate liars." "Will Corinne be there?" "Yes." "Good." The hearing was held in a small wood-paneled courtroom. Elowen wore a simple dark blue dress Marigold had lent her. Ada's silver cross at her throat. She sat at the plaintiff's table beside Edmund Prescott, her hands folded in her lap. Corinne sat at the defendant's table, in a bone-colored cashmere coat, her silver hair in the same low knot. Her expensive lawyer beside her. Julian Ravensdale sat in the gallery, behind Ironhold's own attorney. Corinne looked at Elowen once, and smiled her small smile, the one that meant "I have already won, and you don't know it yet." Elowen looked back. She did not smile. She did not blink. She simply looked, the way Ada Thorne would have looked, the way Ellis Thorne would have looked. Corinne looked away first. Judge Alcott entered. Everyone rose. The hearing began. Corinne's lawyer went first. Smooth, practiced. He painted a picture of a poor grieving widow, a troubled stepdaughter, forged documents, a tragic misunderstanding. Ironhold's lawyer followed. Fabricated geological surveys. A confused young woman manipulated by an aging small-town attorney, with a personal vendetta. Edmund Prescott stood up. He did not raise his voice. He did not gesture. He was a man of 74 years, three-piece suit, silver hair. He spoke as if he were telling a story to a granddaughter. He introduced the second will. Notarized. Witnessed. Filed. Airtight. He introduced the Geological Surveys. Certified by an independent firm out of Duluth. Airtight. He introduced the sworn statements. Iris.
Beau Whitlock.
Airtight. Corinne's lawyer objected 6 times. Judge Alcott overruled him 6 times. Then Edmund said, "Your Honor, I would like to submit into evidence an audio recording made by the plaintiff's late father on September the 11th of 2022, approximately 3 weeks before his death." Corinne's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. We have no chain of custody for any such recording. We have no." "Mr. Prescott, can you establish chain of custody?" "I can, Your Honor. The recorder was hand-delivered to me by Mr. Thorne on September the 12th, 2022. It has been in my office safe, continuously, for 2 years. I have a signed and dated receipt, which I am also submitting into evidence." Objection overruled. "Mr. Prescott, play the recording." Corinne did not move, but her right hand, which had been resting lightly on the defendant's table, curled into a fist. Edmund pressed play. Ellis Thorne's voice filled the courtroom. "I know what you did, Corinne. I know why you married me. I know who paid you. Get out of my house." Corinne closed her eyes. "Ellis, darling, do not be so provincial." The Ironhold lawyer at the next table went white. "Get out. I am not going anywhere, and neither are you, because you are going to have an accident." Julian Ravensdale in the gallery stood up, as if to leave. Judge Alcott, without looking away from the recorder, said, "Sit down, sir, or I will have you held in contempt." He sat. "And that little girl of yours is going to need somebody to take care of her. And that somebody will be me. Do you understand what I am telling you?" "I understand." "Good. Now go to bed, Ellis." The recording ended. The courtroom was completely silent. You could hear the humming of the fluorescent light, the hiss of the radiator. Nothing else. Corinne's lawyer stared at the table. Ironhold's lawyer had gone the color of ash. Corinne, herself, did not move, did not open her eyes. Judge Alcott looked at the defendant. "Mrs. Ashford-Vale, do you have anything to say?" Corinne opened her eyes. She did not look at the judge. She looked at Elowen, and Elowen looked back. Corinne's mouth opened, as if to say something, as if to offer some smooth explanation, some polished lie, but nothing came out. Because for the first time in Corinne Ashford-Vale's smooth polished life, there was nothing left to say. "Very well," said Judge Alcott. "In light of the evidence presented, the countersuit is dismissed. The plaintiff's claim to the Silver Pine property is affirmed. And Mrs. Ashford-Vale, I am ordering the immediate transfer of this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Ashford-Vale to holding." Corinne stood up, very slowly. She walked past Elowen's table on her way to the bailiff. She did not look at her. Elowen did not look at her either. But as Corinne passed, Elowen heard her whisper, just loud enough for Elowen alone to hear, "He was always weak. So are you." Elowen did not turn her head. She said, in a voice that was clear and steady and cold as Silver Pine Lake, "He was the strongest man I ever knew, and you never even saw him." Corinne kept walking. The bailiff took her arm. She was gone. Edmund Prescott put his hand very gently on Elowen's shoulder. "That was well spoken, child." Elowen looked up at him. Her eyes were dry. It was true. Ironhold Development Group fell apart within 3 days. Julian Ravensdale was terminated publicly. On the 6 o'clock news, the board of directors issued a statement distancing themselves from him, claiming he had acted alone, which no one believed. The Boston Ledger ran a retraction on page 2. Corinne's story was pulled. A new story ran on the front page. "Widow charged in husband's death." Recording reveals conspiracy. Elowen's name was not mentioned. Edmund had made sure of it. The district attorney charged Corinne with second-degree murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, 6 other counts. Her bail was set at $2 million. She sat in a county holding cell, waiting for arraignment, in an orange jumpsuit that did not suit her at all. Ironhold's board reached out to Edmund, through a very expensive law firm, offering to settle, quietly, out of court. Edmund flew Elowen back to Minnesota. He would handle the negotiations. He said she needed to be home. Home. She had not called anywhere home in 2 years. She did not have to think about what home meant now. Marigold and Delphine met her at the small regional airport in Duluth. Marigold wrapped her in her small, strong arms, rocked her, whispered nothing at all, because nothing needed to be said. Delphine took her duffel bag, slung an arm around her shoulders. You did it. You held the line. We held the line. Yes, we did. Wendell drove them back to Ridgemont in his rebuilt truck. For brand new tires. He would not say who had paid for them. The town knew. They pulled into the driveway of the yellow clapboard house. And Elowen saw. The porch was full of people. Pastor Josiah, Cyrus, a woman with a covered casserole dish, 2 old fishermen in flannel, a little girl of maybe 7 holding a wilted bouquet of the last October wildflowers. They had come to see her, to welcome her home, because word travels fast in a town like Ridgemont. Elowen got out of the truck, and for the first time in 2 years, she did not shrink from a crowd. She walked up the front walk. The little girl held out the flowers. Elowen bent down, took them, said, "Thank you. What is your name?" "Poppy." "That is a beautiful name, Poppy. My daddy says your daddy fixed our roof when I was a baby. My daddy says your daddy was the best man he ever knew." Elowen straightened up. She could not speak. Cyrus, from the porch, called down, "Ellis fixed a lot of roofs in this town, girl. A lot of people never told him thank you. We aim to fix that, starting now." The town filed past her one by one, and they told her, "Ellis rewired my mother's kitchen. Ellis taught my son to fish. Ellis built my grandfather's coffin. Would not take a dime. Ellis stayed up all night with my husband. In the hospital, when my husband was dying. Ellis was the man who told me, when I was 17, that I was worth more than the man who was hitting me, and he drove me to the shelter. In his own truck." Elowen sat on the porch step, and she listened. For 2 hours she listened. Marigold sat beside her, holding her hand, and Elowen thought, I did not know him. I did not know half of him. And she thought, I have my whole life to learn. The final letter she read alone. Envelope number 22. She had saved it, because it was undated. It had no place in the sequence. It had simply been there. She read it in the office of the ice house. By the light of the wood stove. Snow just beginning to fall outside the small grimy window. Little owl. If everything has gone as I hope, then Corinne is in a cell. Ironhold is broken. Your name is cleared, and you are standing in the ice house. Alone. Reading this, I want you to know that I did not do this for revenge. I did it because I did not want you to become the kind of person who lives in fear. I did it because I did not want you to grow up believing the loudest voice in the room is always right. I did it because your grandmother once told me, when I was your age, that the world will try to hand you a small life. And it is your job to refuse. You have refused, little owl. Now comes the harder part. Now you have to decide what to build. In the place where they tried to tear you down, the money that comes from Ironhold will be significant. Do not let it become the point. Money is not the point. It is never the point. Ada used to say that the only inheritance worth having is the kind that goes forward, not backward. Build something forward, little owl. I love you. I loved you the day you were born. I love you the day I write this. I will love you the day you read this. And I will love you the day you die, which will be, God willing, Many, many years from now, in a bed, surrounded by people you loved into being. Your father. Always, Ellis. Elowen folded the letter. She put it back in the green box. She sat by the stove for a long time. Then she picked up the burner phone. Dialed Edmund. Mr. Prescott. Miss Thorne. I have a list of terms. For the Ironhold settlement. I am listening. First, they pay $1.8 million, which will be placed in a Trust 1 control. Not for me. Second, the entire Silver Pine Lake shoreline, every acre of it, outside of my property, is placed into a permanent conservation trust. No development, ever. Third, Ironhold funds a college scholarship for every child raised in Ridgemont for the next 20 years. Full tuition, books, room and board. Fourth, they do not settle the criminal case. Against Corinne, against Ravensdale, against anyone. That case goes to trial, all the way to trial. And if they interfere, I will withdraw the civil settlement, and I will drag every one of them into court personally. Long silence on the line. Then, Edmund Prescott laughed. It was a small dry laugh, warm underneath. Miss Thorne. Yes, sir. Your father would be so very proud. Yes, sir. I hope so. Ironhold agreed to the terms within 48 hours. They had no choice. 6 weeks later, Corinne Ashford-Vale pled guilty to second-degree murder rather than face a jury. Under her plea agreement, she would serve a minimum of 20 years without possibility of parole. Julian Ravensdale received 12 years for conspiracy and fraud. 2 other Ironhold executives took smaller sentences. Corinne never spoke another word to Elowen. Not through her lawyers. Not through any intermediary. Not ever. Elowen never spoke another word to her either, because some doors once closed are meant to stay closed. 6 months passed. Winter left Silver Pine Lake. The ice on the lake groaned and cracked one night in early April. Elowen heard it from Marigold's spare room. Woke to the sound, smiled, went back to sleep. Spring came slow and green. The apple tree in Marigold's backyard bloomed pink and white. The pines dropped their winter needles. By early June, the ice house looked different. Not because it was different. The great gray timbers still stood. The 3-story ceiling with its massive beams. The old machinery, cleaned now and preserved. A monument. But now, around the machinery, there were bookshelves. There was a small kitchen at one end. A long communal table. A wood stove that was always going. A children's reading corner, with soft cushions, and a hand-painted mural of Silver Pine Lake at sunrise. Delphine had painted it. It was her masterpiece. Above the front door, a hand-carved wooden sign. The Ellis Thorne Community Center.
2024.
All are welcome. Marigold taught baking on Tuesdays. Real baking. From her grandmother's recipes. To anyone who wanted to learn. On the first Tuesday, 4 little girls came. On the 5th Tuesday, 32 people came. From 3 towns over. Delphine taught reading on Wednesdays. To children whose parents worked 2 jobs. To adults who had never quite learned. Nobody was ashamed. Nobody was rushed. Wendell fixed bicycles in the corner on Saturdays. Free. For any child who did not have one that worked. Cyrus told stories on Sunday afternoons. Ghost stories. Fishing stories. Stories about Ada and Ellis. The children sat in a circle on the sawdust floor and listened with their mouths open. Pastor Josiah did not hold services there. He said the community center did not need a service. It was already a kind of prayer. And Elowen had enrolled in the University of Minnesota, online, studying environmental science. She said she wanted to understand the land she had inherited. Not just own it, understand it. On a bright morning in mid-June, she stood on the shore of Silver Pine Lake at sunrise. The water was glass, the mist just beginning to lift. A loon called from the far shore. Marigold stood beside her, in a light spring cardigan, her silver hair loose in the morning breeze. Delphine sat a few yards away, sketchbook in her lap. drawing the light on the water. Pastor Josiah stood a little behind them. Hands folded, silent. Elowen held her father's silver pocket watch in her palm. She had wound it that morning. It still kept time. She held Ada's Bible in her other hand, open to a page Ada had underlined 70 years ago. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Marigold reached over, took Elowen's hand. He would be so proud, sweetheart. Elowen watched the sun climb over the pines, watched it lay a gold road across the water. The same road the moon had laid, that first terrifying October night, 9 months ago, when she had arrived here alone. She was not alone now. She had never been alone. She just hadn't known. She thought about all the 18-year-old girls out there, sitting in beige-carpeted bedrooms, being told they were burdens, being told the loudest voice in the room was always right, being handed cardboard boxes and one-way tickets and cruel smiles. She thought about all the daughters who had lost fathers too soon, who wondered if love reached across the space between the living and the dead. It did. She wanted to tell them. It did. She whispered to the lake, to the light, to her father. I built something forward, Daddy, just like you asked. Marigold squeezed her hand. You did more than that, sweetheart. What did I do? Marigold looked at her, blue eyes wet with morning light. You became who you were always going to be. The loon called across the water. The mist lifted the rest of the way. The pines caught fire in the sun. And Elowen Thorne, 19 years old now, 9 months out of a beige-carpeted bedroom in Boston, standing on the shore of a lake her great-grandfather had loved. Smiled, because her father had been right, all along, because the inheritance he had left her was not a ruin. It was not the ice house. It was not the money. It was not the mineral rights. It was not even the small brave community she had helped build inside those thick old sawdust walls. The inheritance was this, standing at sunrise beside people who loved her, holding her grandmother's Bible, wearing her father's flannel shirt, knowing, all the way down to her bones, knowing that she came from somewhere, that she belonged to someone, that she had at last come home, and that home, once you have found it, cannot ever be taken from you again. Not by cardboard boxes, not by one-way tickets, not by cruel smiles across cold granite counters, not by anything in this world. Home is a fortress, and she was finally safely inside.